This is the captain. We have a little problem with our entry sequence, so we may experience some slight turbulence and then explode.
What are you doing? Don't touch that. No, what? No, we already have one of those. I don't care if it's good. I don't think you will. Hey, wait, stop that. Stop! Okay, chinchilla. Chinchilla already!
Coca-Cola, lipstick ring, go dance all night, dance all night. I've got dancing legs, woo! I've got dancing legs. They won't stop me dancing, no, they won't stop me dancing. Kiss me, just kiss me Nefertiti. Just the way you like it, just the way you like it. Kiss me, kiss me, lipstick ring, oh, that's the way you like it.
Okay, I'll admit it. That was really likable.
Flattered grin.
Hello and welcome to Somebody Told Me to Watch This, a movie podcast for those in fear of credibility. If this is your first time with us, I'd like to say welcome. If you're returning, I'd like to say thank you. But above all else, if you've learned anything from us, it was purely accidental. I'll be your host today, the man with the fake head, Mike D. First, we have the world's best theremin player, Jenny D.
Hello?
Then, we have the man with the sticky digits, Rick D.
Your music shit.
And the one with itchy britches, Angie S.
Big non-threatening grin.
And today we go over the movie Frank, an indie film with Michael Fassbender, Magneto, starring, that no one has heard of, but yet everybody has heard of it. That's not true, but let's go on. I'm just going to jump right in. This movie confuses me. I don't know whether I like it or whether I don't like it. And I'm so confused because the music I hate, but I looked it up on YouTube and was listening to it at work, a couple of the songs on repeat, and I really grew on me. Even with Michael Fassbender, I don't know how to explain my feelings towards this film.
You have to admit that I Love You All song is
That's
really
the one I was
catchy.
listening to.
It's super catchy, and I find myself listening to it all the time.
Well, how did you feel about the film itself? You're the one who recommended this one. Oh, Angie is. All right, right to Angie.
Well, I feel kind of along the same lines as you. I like it, but at the same time, like, I do have mixed feelings about it, where I'm like, there's parts where I'm like, but I feel like it's supposed to feel that way. Like, I don't feel like I would like this better if they didn't do this, because I'm like, no, I think it's all fine.
What is that way to you?
I don't know, I guess, well, it doesn't have a feel-good ending, which, I mean, I like that aspect of it, but at the same time, I'm like, you have kind of a yucky feeling at the end, but at the same time, kind of a good feeling at the end.
I mean, it depends. Like, I thought of it that way. Like, oh, this isn't really that great, like, that good of an ending. Not like it's not good as in it's a bad ending. It's not good as in it doesn't make you feel good. But then I sat back and I thought about it and I was like, who is it good for? It's better for the band than it is for the quote-unquote main character.
Oh, yeah.
Which is fine because throughout the whole film, we're, like, kind of geared towards not liking the main character.
But the main character is the one you can relate to the most easily, and that's what's hard about it. It's like Great Expectations. I hate Pip, but he's the guy you're along the ride with, and I hate the main character of this movie, but that's who I am right now.
I fell in more along the lines of liking him, but we'll get back into that in a little bit. But Jenny, how did you feel about the film overall?
Like, overall, I think I was pretty indifferent about the movie. Like, I didn't hate it, I didn't love it, I only sort of
Did you stay
liked
awake
it.
through it?
No, I did stay awake. I did, yeah, and I watched the whole thing, and I stayed awake, and I didn't look at my phone, and I didn't daydream. Like, I was watching the whole thing, paying attention, but I don't know, I'm pretty indifferent to it. I wasn't real crazy about it.
What drove you from actually liking it? Was it the quirkiness of it?
Absolutely. Like, it was just so awkward. Like, I couldn't handle that. I can't handle that, like, situational awkward
funniness.
So every Ben Stiller movie is off your list.
I don't even know who that is.
Yes. It's off mine for that exact reason.
Is that, I guess maybe it was supposed to be funny. Like I don't really know if it was supposed to be a comedy. Because I didn't really find it funny at all. Nothing made me laugh.
Well, let's get into the overall feel of the movie and try and get more into that because it's a broader scope. Like, I don't know. Did anybody find it really that funny?
Yes.
Yeah, I found a lot of it funny.
I chuckled at a lot, but I was like kind of depressed through most of it.
That's what I think it is. Like when I first watched the movie, I was like, I mean, it was good. The second time I watched the movie, this will be my third time. I guess this time I skimmed through it because I remembered most of it. The second time, it started to grow on me, and I was like, okay, and I'm getting everything. And I realized more that Frank is like one of the best characters I've ever seen on film just because of his... he's weird, but he's so out there and like when you start to get his humor, it's really funny.
But it's not trying to be funny. I find he's a handicapped, disturbed individual.
You don't know that until the end, though.
I kind of...
I pick up on it, but at the same time... I don't know how much more tweaked he is than a lot of people I know. So I'm like, Frank's funny on his own. His quirks are endearing. And he has a huge mental illness like many of my friends and myself. So I kind of find Frank relatable, but I'm not that far gone, I guess.
Yeah. But I mean, like
he's just a quirky
well,
dude.
we might as well get into Frank then. The main character, Michael Fassbender.
I think the funniest part about that movie was his most likable song.
Dance all night,
I love that it's just like all of the pop music filtered through Frank, and that is what it came out like. That was, you could tell that Frank had heard music, and that is what it sounds like to him. And he's like, yeah, this is a likable song. And you're like,
because it's every likable thing that he can think of. And it's just...
an upbeat tune. And
yeah, it's just...
I got dance legs!
I just think I think that's really funny. Like, you find out at the end, like, that he is, like, not on the level of like, a normal person. But then when you go back and you think about it, and his whole, like, distorted look on what music is... And then he puts that out, it makes it that much funnier. Because you're just like, oh god, Frank thinks that the world is just dancing legs and Coca-Cola.
Those are popular things to Frank.
Like, Frank itself, like, I give kudos to Michael Fassbender, because even though I didn't see his welcoming smile, I still felt like I never questioned him having the head, which I thought was impressive, because... You would think, like, I don't know what he's feeling, but I never questioned the head, really, in the movie.
Yeah.
Except for a couple of times towards the end when it was kind of more ambiguous what he was actually feeling, like when he was starting to have his breakdown. But overall, I was impressed by that. Jenny? Poke and prod? What did you think of the guy with the giant doll's head?
I don't know which one is Frank. I don't know. I think I liked Frank and the main character the best out of everybody. I absolutely hated the rest of the band. Absolutely hated every single one of them. They all needed to die in fire. I hated them all.
Even Clara?
I hated them all.
Maggie Gyllenhaal.
I hated them all.
Psycho. Which was great. That's the only Maggie Gyllenhaal where I'm just like, this kind of makes sense. She looks the part, like, the entire way through. I felt like the moment she said, I will stab you, I'm like, he's getting stabbed at the end of this film
at some point.
Because he will screw it up.
Yeah.
And her face looks like it's melting.
Yes.
No offense to her. But, I don't know. Yeah, it's just like the cheeks and everything. It's like, great actress, just... I don't know what was going on with that.
The way that they put the makeup on
Yeah.
and stuff like that. I don't know.
Well, we're actually skipping around. We should get back to her, but what about the main character? The keyboardist? I'm
John.
blanking on his
John.
name. John,
Yeah,
the most
John.
bland
John,
name we can
yes.
think of.
John is just,
He's a person with a dream who
He's
hates where he is.
he's a normal person. And he just falls into this place where he thinks he wants to be, and he takes something and he tries to make it into what he thinks it should be, and it should just exist on its own. And then he, like, John's whole thing with Frank and the band, it's like taking home a wild animal that you have no business keeping in your house and then realizing at the end that, like, he needs to be set free.
But
And
is
they're
it
all-
set free?
Yes.
Because Frank is kind of corralled. He's almost caged by the band, and even remotely, just so he doesn't freak out. Even Maggie Gyllenhaal, towards the beginning, I thought was she sabotaged her own instrument to freak out before he could play, so she could kind of keep him locked up and away from everybody.
I think it was more or less that, like, she's seen him freak out and have those breakdowns, so she knows what his safe levels are, so she's like, uh-oh. Like,
So did she do that on purpose at the beginning?
I don't know if she did that on purpose at the beginning, but
I have no idea.
I never really thought about that one, but as it went on, I was like, oh, I understand why she's not letting this band be famous.
There's definitely a like, she seems, as she said, she seems to know where he needs to be. And you were saying, like, is he really set free?
Or is he caged by her?
Or caged by them? I don't think it's really a cage as much as it is a fence. You keep fences up to not only keep things out, but to keep things in. And it's not like, you know...
I think that's his home.
I think that's where he belongs, because obviously anywhere else, he is not in the mental state to be any, like normal. But at the end, you kind of get that, like, feeling of everything's going to be okay, because he gets up on that stage, and he plays with them without the mask on, and everything seems to just, like, okay, now it's back to the way it was. I mean, it'll always be different, but at least he's, you know, where he should be.
He's broken through the mask, which is good. I think that's a big step for Frank. And at the same time, I mean, that's the group of people that kind of understands Frank.
Like, even with that, Frank is such the main character of the story. Even though we have John as the main character, even as we're talking, we're like, let's talk about John, and we're immediately pulled back to Frank. But to try and course correct and get back on John, I could see, I couldn't tell if I know we were supposed to feel at the end, like you stated, like he was trying to change them, but at the beginning it almost felt like they were constricting him. Like everything he did, they were like, this is just shit.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, most of the time they were right. It kind of was shit.
But they never gave him more time to, like, actually work it out. It was just dead, you shouldn't try anymore, it sucks.
Well, think about it. It's not his band. He was brought in at can you play these notes? Okay, cool, you're in. That doesn't mean, oh, now, if I went to a band that was already established and done everything and worked together, and they asked me, can you play this? And I go, yes. Okay, you're in. I'm not going to try to bogart the whole band.
Yeah, but he didn't do that at the beginning, when he was just doing his own thing. Like at that one point with Maggie Gyllenhaal and Frank, where he's just like, I just wrote this one little thing, and then they just kind of pushed him out of the way and took it as their own. I kind of felt that was really, like, dickish of them.
See, I feel like with this specific band, there's just a specific chemistry. It's almost like it's a machine. And John's not trying to be the gear he's supposed to be. He's like, hey, I have this. And they're like, oh, well, this is how we wind it into what we do. And continue to make the machine run. He's just
becoming a pulley system to a clock. It doesn't fit. Like,
But that's not what he wants, and they won't just outright tell him that.
Because
Well, until the
weird.
very end.
because they're all. I mean,
they're
all
weird and he's not.
But even that, if you look at that, is it the band? Because maybe it's, you have John, who's like, this guy's really weird with the head, and you have the bandmates who all think Frank's a genius. I listen to most of his songs and I'm like, this is crap. But, like, is it John kind of, like, feeding off? They think Frank's brilliant. John only sees the world of where Frank is brilliant and nothing else. Does Frank actually think, or does John actually think Frank is brilliant? Or is it just something like mob mentality? Everybody else thinks it, so I think it too. And then he's struck with the reality of that at the end of the film when he realizes everybody was just viewing Frank as a joke.
I think he legitimately did think that Frank was a genius, because they had that moment where, because at the beginning he was kind of definitely like, oh, Frank is really bizarre, but then he had that like one-on-one time with Frank where Frank made an entire song about the lint that was standing up on the blanket, and he made an entire song about this little piece of thread, and John was like, he just ad-libbed that whole song. Like, all he did was just talk about this lint on the bed with this blanket. Like, he thought that was just brilliant, because he had a horrible, horrible time trying to come up with songs. It took him weeks to come up with the right words and, the right melody or whatever. But here, Frank could do it just, with the snap of a finger. And I think he really did legitimately buy that. And I think he saw that in him, but also saw the other weird stuff he was, and was hoping that he could be more than he really was.
And it's like, when he's talking to Don,
The former keyboardist.
yeah, and it's all of that where he's like, you're gonna want to be Frank. You can't be Frank. He's like, my songs are shit too. But then
That was so sad.
He does a song that's not nearly as shitty as John's song.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, strange love song about a mannequin. And it's beautifully worded. It's just somber, and like it's a good song, but it's not what he wants it to be, which is Frank. I don't know. Within this band, that is the thing. And
But is that... And
honestly, I didn't even think John's song was that bad. Like, the melody was fine, but the singing was not so
the
good.
words
Like,
were terrible.
There were
But
no
that's the
words.
thing, like,
well, it's. Oh, go on.
okay.
John writes standard Britpop. That's what, and I like Britpop, but that's not what this band is. John is somebody that belongs everywhere else but this band, and the band doesn't belong
Ringo.
anywhere else but this band. So he's trying really hard to fit his square peg in this round hole, or vice versa.
But eventually, in the film, he does kind of submit to it before the ending, before they actually go to the ending, the third act of the last scene in the music festival. But like, what led? Like, is it Frank that going through these keyboardists? That's the third keyboardist is John. So you had the first one who was you just said his name, Don. You had the middle one who tried to drown himself in the ocean. Why are they all going crazy?
Well,
is it because of Frank?
I think they all legitimately were crazy. Like, crazy is a bad word. Like, I think they all were mentally unstable. I mean, they all met in a psychiatric hospital.
Did they? I thought
I
Maggie
think
Gyllenhaal's
pretty
character
many
wasn't,
of them.
because she laughed it off when they were in the hot tub. And John's like, when did you get out of the hospital? Did you meet in the hospital? And she just laughs it off.
Yeah.
Like, and I took that as she wasn't ever in a hospital.
Don definitely was. Frank definitely was. And
the other two, we had no idea.
I wouldn't be surprised if the other keyboardist was. I think maybe just those two, like maybe just those three characters were, and just, the constant, like, need to be like Frank maybe was just too much for them.
So, well, let's take it to Maggie Gyllenhaal, though. I think she worked perfectly for this, the character she was playing, but I didn't see her endearing. I just saw her as a bitch, and not much else.
I'd say so.
Yeah.
Pretty one-dimensional character there.
She's not endearing. She is, to a certain degree, I can respect her as kind of a caretaker. Because, by the end of the movie, I'm like, oh, she's taking care of Frank. That's what's going on. And I think the band kind of all does that, but she definitely, cracks the hammer down when things are going, too far out of Frank's comfort zone. Which is, yeah, you could say, Frank should be getting help for this, which is true, but on the other hand, I think they all just love Frank as he is, and they're just let Frank be Frank.
I thought it was almost like she wanted Frank for herself and no one else, almost.
Well, that's what
don't
John
take him out of this
thought.
world.
But I don't... Yeah, I didn't necessarily feel like that was the thing.
She also... Did she admit to loving Frank? Because in the hot tub, again, John asks her, like, you're in love with Frank, and she kind of laughs that off. And I didn't understand if she was admitting that or not.
I'm pretty sure she did.
Like, I didn't know whether it was paternal love, like a mother and a child, or a sister and a brother, or was it...
No, I kind of felt like they were in love. I mean, I interpreted that whole song about the lighthouse keeper as, like, her thinking about Frank and singing to Frank.
Like, oh.
That's just me.
I feel like a relationship between them would just be the band. Like, I don't think it would ever progress to anything, like, bigger than that. I think her relationship is the band itself.
I don't think Frank has the capacity to love her.
No.
I think...
He loves them all.
Yeah, he loves... But no, like, I don't think his mental stability would be able to comprehend a relationship.
Well, yeah.
So, like, I think that also kind of went into her laughing it off kind of thing, because I think she knows that.
Yeah.
Because he's too out there. Like, he's too, like, engrossed in other things to even think about that kind of thing. So, yeah, I think she probably does love him, but he will not be able to love her back.
And I think she's accepting of that.
Yeah. So instead of it being a platonic relationship, I'm sorry, instead of it being like a love relationship, it's more of like a platonic relationship, like a brother and sister. She wants to protect him more than she wants to be with him. I think that's what it turned into, and that's why she's so defensive about him.
Well, how about her character herself? Like, I kind of felt her character was just hitting all the indie beats.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
the grumpy one who eventually is like, when someone like finally curses at her, she just like, all right, I need to have sex now, kind of thing, which you've seen a dozen times. Like, that's one of the parts of the movie I didn't like. It had a lot of those indie tropes that, like, all right, you have to have this awkward comedy, you have to have a death, you have to have...
Well, it was
like,
an independent film.
Yeah, I know, but, like, did it have to follow all those beats? Like, you have to have a death, and then you have to have something funny at the funeral from
Mike,
a misunderstanding.
It's going to Sundance. Of course they have it. This is the market that they're going to. If it did anything else, they'd be like, what is this doing here?
I just didn't... I thought it took it out, because when Don, eventually, we find out he kills himself. And it's kind of glanced over really quick. And I almost felt like, all right, they were like, the checklist. We need a death in this film. Don, we don't like you. Don dies. And he was my favorite character because I felt so bad for him. Especially when he was playing his song and then he's like, yeah, I know, it's shit. And he just laughs it off, so defeated. I was like, no. No, it was decent. You can get better. But then he just hangs himself and I'm like, okay, that came out of nowhere. Especially when they're like, now their album is done, and he just, I gotta take a rope exit.
Well, again, I think it also goes down to, they met in a psychiatric ward. I'm sure he was already unstable. As they said, they were pushing themselves the entire time. And I think that was kind of his, I think that his song was kind of like his curtain call. And then he just went out.
But I don't know. I just felt like that death was just like where it came out of left field. It's like we had too much quirkiness. We have to make it real now.
Well,
and that's right when the film starts going to very dramatic as opposed to quirky comedy.
Because that's where John's able to step in and be like, I'm the manager of the band now. Don would have wanted it to be that. That's where everything goes to shit and the whole just equilibrium of the band is like, uh-oh.
Yeah, because John misinterprets all of the publicity they're getting from Twitter and YouTube. He's like, they love the band. No, they just laughing at you ironically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hipsters.
Yeah.
God damn it.
But I mean, being in a band, like a personal experience, that kind of like throwing a wrench into the gears like that, it can seriously screw you up and make that stuff go downhill. I mean, I kind of think they were doing that to show how real and how fast that can go downhill. I mean, you got Don. Don could not be in the movie the entire time. Just going through a movie standpoint, he had to exit somewhere. They chose to kill him off. Because John has to be that push. And as much of his negative push as it was, he needed to be that push to progress the movie forward into where they wanted it to
Well,
go.
then he just turns into a plot device and not a character.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, everybody is...
Well, they're characters
Yeah.
Yeah.
that interact from plot devices. They're not plot devices.
Well, he's
No.
both.
Yeah.
He's both at the same time,
But
because...
that's so sad. Well,
No,
Well,
but
he's,
you
like-
want your characters to have a purpose. And, I mean,
But
some of
to
those
just-
characters just really didn't have a purpose. I mean, the guy in the French
basis.
guy or whatever, yeah, didn't have a purpose. Aside from insulting John
Right.
the entire movie.
same with the drummer.
I mean,
they're
yeah.
just-
So, I mean, in a way, it's good that he had a purpose, and he was the driving force. He was the one that took the band and pushed them to realize what it was what they really were. And they were a studio band, they weren't a live band, and they were never going to be a live band that people were going to go see.
Yet we're
And
introduced to them as a live band.
There were 4 people in the room. Did you look at how many people were in the room? When in that first scene,
But-
there were 4 people
Like,
there.
I think they keep it that way too, and Frank's like, they won't let us be like a bigger band, but they all know what Frank does when it's bigger, so that's why. And I think it's just that since John is a normal person like the rest of us, he looks at the band as a band, and he's like, oh, and then we make them bigger, and that's what bands do. But that's not what this band is. This band is not a band. This band is its own special
But
weird thing.
They want to get Frank to be noticed, though, because that's what the album is about, which is another thing that's brought up in this film. We got to finish the album, which is like the first 2/3 of the movie, all about this album, and then all ideas of the album just disappear from the story.
But I think the album was more like... The album's like when you paint a painting, you don't necessarily have to be like, everybody look at my painting. They're just like, I made art. It's done, we did a thing. Move on, we do another thing.
Yeah, I felt like it was definitely 2 conflicting ideas of what that band was supposed to be. And I think the rest of the band wanted it to stay like alright, this is fun, we're having a good time, we're gonna make records, we're gonna have fun making music, and it's just gonna be us having a good time. Frank kind of, I think, wanted it to be a little bit bigger, but everybody else was kind of like, no,
And again,
that's not a good idea.
I think that's exactly what they were doing. They were stopping him because he wanted to be big, and John did everything behind their back. If you notice, like he went on the Twitter
did.
and did all that. He was the one trying to push it, and they knew, like I guess from they've been together for a while, that we can't have that. Like nobody's gonna understand this. This is just for Frank to get his his ideas out, because I guess it's like therapy for them. And I think they were all like, and then once they saw like, oh, it's getting big, I think that kind of stuff, numbers change people's minds. Like they're like, oh, okay, well maybe this is big. And then again, I think then reality hit again, where they're just like, no, we can't do this.
Yeah, Frank was definitely all for it, because I think he thought people already heard it and already liked him, and that
Yes.
it would be
He didn't freak out
something
until
cool.
he had
Exactly.
questions whether
He
they
was
liked it or not.
definitely all for it, like all for that, going to that big concert and whatever. And he was definitely game, but once somebody said, "Oh no, nobody's heard of you," then that was like the downfall.
Yeah, because it was
Yeah,
all one girl who invited them.
And I mean, Frank himself is someone who lives behind a mask. Frank is an insecure person. I think that's way too much exposure at once for Frank.
Definitely.
So when he realizes that, like, oh, not everybody is gonna be like, yeah, he's like, oh, like it's
I need to
scary
paint my
again.
face and dress up like a doll.
And it kind of sucks, because even though the band had they had good intentions to like keep the reins, but they didn't let him grow like gradually. You know what I mean?
Right.
They almost forced John to be like, you guys are the ones that want to make a record and want to be a band and want to go be big. Like, we're gonna go do it. Because why not? Like, here's the opportunity. Let's go.
Yeah,
and
they all eventually agree to do it.
Right,
But, like, why didn't
if
they-
had not been so like protective and so like, don't go, Frank. Let's not do that. Let's go to this cabin and record in private. If they hadn't been like that, they maybe would have done a couple of really small shows and gradually gotten bigger, so that wasn't such a blast in the face.
It seemed very out of place because like the music festivals in America, they're in Ireland.
I don't know.
No, it was. I
guess
it was Texas.
They were in Texas.
Well, they weren't.
There's no way.
The concert was.
Yes,
but they came
were
to America
from Europe.
Yeah.
Okay, why? Like they have the CD. This is one of those things. They have this CD. The whole first 2/3 of the movie is about the CD, and they do nothing with it. I felt it was really bad in the movie. It's like you have this. Frank's unstable. Why didn't they just like, all right, we have the CD. Let's put it out. We worked for it. Let's take a break. Let's see how it does.
Well,
they just ignore it.
There wasn't enough time for that.
Here's the other thing is that when you're a band who hasn't done anything like that before, you need to find somebody to publish, distribute, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Just going around handing some CDs with people who are probably a little bit, again, mentally unstable and a bit shy, they're not going to go around and hand stuff out to people. They don't have the mentality of let's push this out, let people like boil it for a while. They don't know what to do. I think that this whole movie is about a band that doesn't know what it's doing.
But
Not
even
only
then,
that.
It's just existing. Like,
but we have.
Well, not
there's-
only that, I mean, there wasn't enough time for them to make that decision. I mean, they finished the recording, and Don, died the next day. He, killed himself the next day. And then, just as that's happening, John gets the text about, or the whatever, message or whatever, about going to this concert in Texas, or wherever it was, Austin, or...
But that's another reason why not to go, because you just had one of your friends die.
True, but they're in the mentality of, look, we did this thing, and Don would be really proud if we did this other thing. It was almost a memorial to Don.
Yeah, I mean, they already had his Viking funeral and all that other stuff, so I mean, it's not like they needed to do anything else. I mean, it seems like he didn't have family, or else they...
Or they probably wouldn't have burned his body.
Yeah.
It just seemed... To me, I hear what you're all saying, but I just saw it as, they know about Frank, they know all about his limitations and everything, yet they still agree to it, just basically because Maggie Gyllenhaal had sex.
Well,
That's what got her to agree.
And...
Women, my God.
They were all probably not in the right state of mind to make that kind of decision.
That's even more of a reason for them to
yeah,
stay.
but that's
they don't
why
have a producer,
they did it,
but they don't know what to do. You don't have a manager. Now you have this guy who's been going behind your back and doing all this stuff with Twitter and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now, okay, I bring to you, we're in a band. I bring to you this thing that has 300,000 followers and an invite to go to a concert. What do you say? You say yes at that point.
Well, it depends on who's with. If Jenny has a severe mental illness, I'm going to be like, maybe not.
Do you have a severe mental illness?
No.
In the band, you do. I'm the manager. I'm the only one.
The manager has no mental illness.
And I don't. I don't have any mental illness.
And
everybody else in the band has something wrong with them.
You could say, Maggie Gyllenhaal is, her character would be objected to it and she is, until that stupid thing where she had sex, and that was just so...
But no, she wasn't really, for it.
She wasn't.
Everybody else for it was
She was
for
literally not to it until right after they had
She
sex.
still wasn't for it.
I think she just
went along because everybody else was for
Yeah,
it.
I mean,
I don't think anybody
if,
was
you,
for it.
if you're
Outvoted.
protecting Frank, and Frank's going, you got to go with Frank.
Yeah.
I don't...
Everybody...
Frank was confused about it as well.
But he still
No,
went.
he was like, I think Claire's been holding us back. Because you're the first one that realizes my dream. And then it's well, I mean, if Frank's gonna go follow this dream,
Yeah,
you have to go.
And I
It's
feel
quite
I'm sorry.
I was just saying, it's quite an unfortunate position for poor Frank. Somebody's finally realized his dream. Meanwhile, this other person that he's trusted all this time, maybe he's holding him back without realizing that,
It's to protect him.
It's to protect him, and,
Okay, so what's the overall theme of the movie then? Is it to give up on your dreams? Don gave up on his dream. John, at the end, you could say he kind of walked away and gave up on his dream. Frank has to give up on his dream.
Why does Frank have to give up on his dream?
Because it's all people and performing for a lot of people, which you
But
know.
he did it.
In time, he never performed. But in time, who's saying that Frank can't do what he's doing right now? With the music the way it is right now, Frank would be number 1 on the charts because music is fucking weird right now.
It's all subjective.
But at the end, he did perform, so to speak. I mean, there was only about 4 or 5 people in that room when they were performing, just like in the first scene. But you know, that's kind of what they need. Is they need to be in that situation where there's only a couple of people, and then slowly they get bigger because of his mental illness. They need to be more accustomed to that.
Ever
Starts
out small, and what they did was they started out small and then rocketed forward, and nobody comes back from that.
Well, the theme, if you really think about it, the theme is not trying to be something that you are not. John is trying to be this weird, quirky band. That's not what he is. Frank's trying to be anything but himself. When he couldn't be Frank anymore, when, like, he was, like, booed off the stage, then he was, like, Weird Lady Frank. Like, because he couldn't be that anymore. When the head broke, like, what was he going to do? But at the end of the movie, he's himself. And he doesn't have a mask, and he's, you know, but he knows his places with the band, and...
But that's such a... Is that an actual... Sorry to cut you off.
It's okay.
But isn't that kind of sad? It's like, accept where you are?
No, it's accept who you are.
Yeah.
It's not where you are. It's, I mean,
but
he is happiest when he's creating music, and he's happiest with this support system that understands him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, they can move forward as they want to at this point. Frank's moving forward with being himself, so he's got this new journey. But he is him. John is John. And at the end of the movie, that is what they are, and they understand.
Right.
But what is John at the end of the movie besides a defeated man who has to make up for all the stuff he's done, and then he gets no closure. He just, alright, the band doesn't... I messed this up, now I have to go and...
He was smiling at the end, though. He knew exactly that he couldn't be in this world.
But he could. It showed after he was accepted at one point. He just really screwed it up.
Right. But the thing is, he screwed it up in a way that's different from musical. Like, he tried to push the band forward, and all he should have been was a keyboardist. But he didn't want to be just a keyboardist.
Right.
He wanted to be, like, his thing, and that didn't fit with the band.
Right.
It's just like saying, we're a metal band. We play metal. I want to play the Beatles. And
Ukulele.
It just won't fit. Like, you can't do that.
For John, the whole journey was discovering who he was and what he wanted out of life. And he learned that. And
he learned that he is bad at it.
No, he didn't. He learned that he's better at some things than other things. And he accepted that. And he walked away from that band knowing that that wasn't his scene. He wasn't fitting in.
No, but he did fit in. The only reason he didn't is because he tried to change it. Why couldn't it just be... He's learned from his mistakes. The band accepted him. How about the band forgive him as well?
Would you rather be would you be in a band that somebody stabbed you in?
Yeah, why not?
No.
But he understands it at the end. That's why he understands why she did it. He obviously forgave them because he went and found Frank for them, brought Frank to them. And I do like that little ad about Frank. It's like that's one of the indie things that I was hoping they wouldn't do, and they didn't, which was like Frank would have this horrible backstory, and they're like, and when he talks to their parents, why is Frank like this? And he's like, that's just how it is. And I like that. Mm-hmm. That was one of my favorite parts of the movie. It's no big secret. He didn't get molested. He didn't see his brother die from a giant doll's head falling on him and crushing him. It was just, that's how life is. It's just sometimes you're dealt a bad hand.
But going back to what you said, I don't think John ever really did fit in.
No. I don't think
No.
he did either.
And
He didn't.
even if he maintained the status quo of the band, he would have been hungry and he would have wanted more. He would
Right.
have wanted to be the front man, and that's just how John is.
Right.
Which
John's
is
not
why-
wired
And
right for the
that's
But
band.
he
what-
learns
that's
his
what he
lesson
learned.
at the end.
Right.
Yeah,
his
but then
Why doesn't he
lesson.
stay?
No, his
Because he wants to be
lesson
the
was
band.
he wants to be the one to drive the band forward. He wants to move, the band to bigger things, and
Band is
they
Frank.
can't do that.
Not John.
No, that's what I understand. So we get to the aspect that he learns that this is not his place. He cannot write songs. But he can help with that. He can be a good keyboardist. He can lend beats and stuff.
He doesn't.
And that's what he learns. Like, he learns, like, my place is keyboard. I'm not going to be a front man. Maybe I should lay off the management, and I'll just be a part of the band.
He learns that that's all he could be in that band. He doesn't want to be in that band. He
But we're
wants
told-
he wants John. That's what he wants. He wants John, not Frank.
Right.
And you see
can't
what happened
have
with-
two frontmen.
Right, and you see what happened with
Unless
Don.
you're in Lincoln Park.
Don was the keyboardist, he couldn't hack that, and then he was the manager, and he couldn't handle that because Don wanted more. So John has an example of what he could potentially wind up as, this unsatisfied person that wants to be someone else. John's gonna be John.
And I would understand that if John was portrayed as having some potential, but since he is portrayed as such crap, you never see that, like, alright, he's gonna go off his own and be kind of successful and have his own... No, we're just showing he's crap, he's crap, he's crap, and then he goes off his own to be crap?
But
When he
it's
could
his own
have-
crap.
But
That's what he wants.
I don't think he wanted that. I think he wanted to be successful, and his best chance was to stay with Frank as and be that keyboardist, be that support
No, I don't
instead.
think so, because he started out as not even having a complete song. But when he was working with Frank and the rest of the band, doing, learning from Frank and learning from the rest of the band and learning from Don, he had completed a song. He finally had a completed song. But he couldn't go any further. He couldn't learn anything more from them. He had to go off and be on his own so that he could be better.
Mm-hmm.
He's just starting out.
And
And
he
they're
had
comfortable.
nothing when he walked in.
Right.
Nothing. Like, he didn't have any, like... he's never been in a band. He's never done this. He had, as you said, maybe, 3 lines of a song, if not. And then he progressed more, and you learn, and then you move on. Because, obviously, okay, you're an egg. Don't try to be a flank steak. Go be an egg.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what you're saying is, he is a steak. Frank's this is the weirdest analogy
No,
ever.
no.
And
What I'm
I'm
saying
so
is,
hungry right now.
John is an egg. John is an egg
and
that
Frank
is now trying to be a flank steak. You can't be a flank steak. Go and be an egg.
There's
Okay.
nothing inherently wrong with being an egg.
Right,
No.
but he can still achieve the same thing that a flank steak can achieve.
But
He
that's
can-
being a
you
flank
can-
steak, then.
No, you
Yes,
can.
yes.
You can eat
If my
an
egg tastes like flank steak,
No,
it's flank steak.
That's not what I'm saying.
I'm just saying 2 fruit.
No,
Okay, apple
that's
and
not what
orange.
I'm saying. What I'm saying is, when you're hungry, you can eat an egg and you can be full, or you can eat a flank steak and you can also be full. Is what I'm saying. You
Not
can
one's
still
not inherently
achieve
better
your
than the
goal.
other.
No, but yes, I understand that. But he wants to be the same thing as Frank. He wants to be that leading man and everything.
Did at first, and I think he wanted to be like Frank, and that's why he was trying to be the front man and trying to do all this stuff. And then you realize after a while that this isn't going to work because I'm now trying to be a Frank type person. I'm trying to be the leader of this band. I'm trying to be the focus, and I can't because there's already a focus. And now that now that I know that these will keep butting heads, I'm going to stop being a catalyst and stop being a bringer of death around this band, and I'm going to pull away, and I'm going to start my own thing. But I'm not going to destroy something that was already there before I was there. He came in, and they were already established. They already did their thing. And he realized that he can't be a part of this, so he's going to go off and do his own thing. And he was okay. You could see it in his face when he's walking away. He's okay with this. He's not damn it, I did something. No, he was it all just came together. He was just you know what, this is how it's supposed to be.
Right, and who's to say they don't, still keep in touch or whatever, because we don't see that. But you
They
know,
probably goes and sees them.
He probably sees them.
actually.
They probably don't talk, but I'm sure he probably goes to see them if they're in town or something. Yeah.
sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
I just don't think. I think everyone has the rock star dream. You don't have to be a rock star. My God, I used to write songs and I'm like, they're not very good. So I don't. And I have other dreams. Your dreams are infinite. You can dream other dreams. You can do other things.
I mean,
And John doesn't have to be a rock star. John could be anything else that fits John.
and I was in a band, and it happens. Two people start wanting to be the star of the show, and when that starts to happen, everything starts to fall apart. Like, because you can't have two stars. Like, you can have either the band, or you can have, like, No Doubt, where it's just Gwen Stefani and a backing track. Like, that's what No Doubt is. It's just Gwen Stefani and a backing track. Nobody goes, no, you don't see the other single band members on the cover of a page. It's just Gwen Stefani and they're in the background. Or it's just Gwen Stefani and it just says No Doubt. Like, if they had Gwen Stefani and then Christina Aguilera came in, they would never let each other share the spotlight. It just wouldn't work. So what happens is when you have that happen, you break off and you start your own thing.
Well, maybe how I'm seeing this movie is I don't see John as wanting to be the front man.
He does. He starts pushing himself on the band. Especially, like, if you notice during the show, he pushes everyone out, and it's just him and Frank. And he was perfectly fine with that.
And then when Frank just, like, melted down, he was like... And he starts doing his, like, la, 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 and tries to do his own song, and he seems like, this is okay, like... And he's like, oh, here I am, and he's like, oh, this...
Right.
I think that's where it hits him, like... That
Even when
doesn't
they
work.
were in, like, at the show, like, a couple of days beforehand, where he was like, okay, we need to have better music. And he was trying to, like, push his own ideas on and change the band, like,
And they
to make it their own.
They sat there
To
and
make
went,
it their own thing.
nope. Because that's not the way they were.
Right. And then they also said, we're not doing it without Frank.
Yeah.
I mean, Frank was...
No, without Maggie Gyllenhaal.
I think it was, like,
Was
one
it?
of them left. And I don't remember
Maggie.
which one.
Because she got arrested.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because she stabbed him, right?
Yeah.
See, I think that was just John trying to make... Because he didn't want to cancel it, and that was him just going. I think he wanted to contribute, but I don't think he ever saw himself
That's
as...
why he didn't cancel.
I didn't think he saw himself as anything like that could compare with Frank. I think he wanted to be like Frank, but he wanted to at least just contribute something. But then at the end, as it was falling apart, he was so desperate to keep that alive, to have him with a band up there, because he wanted to have the drummer and he wanted to have the guitarist there, but he couldn't convince them to go without Maggie Gyllenhaal. I wish I knew her name from the film. Clara, that's
four
it.
times.
Without Clara, because I think he was perfectly fine. He wanted them to go. He wanted to perform and be part of the band up there. And the only reason he started to sing, because he was so desperate to keep it together so he wouldn't. So his idea of that success wouldn't just disappear.
I think he got a bit of an ego.
Mm-hmm.
When you, as I said, numbers change people. Once you get that big of an ego, that's when I think he started to drive, like, oh,
Yeah,
I'm
like
gonna make.
as soon as those two girls at the diner started talking about it, and I love Frank just pouring all the syrup on the pancakes, and he has a straw, and that's when the band realizes, and he realizes that they're just mocking them, and they're not actually popular, because only one person put them up.
His drive to keep the band together was what made me have the impression that he wanted to be bigger. He wanted to keep going. He didn't want to cancel.
Yeah,
because
I don't disagree with that at all. I realize that, and I perfectly see that. It's just what I think he wanted that, he didn't care where he wanted to just contribute. I don't think he wanted to take the main stage.
But what he had to contribute didn't fit with what that band was about. I think there's also something to be said
Because
for,
it was shit.
Like, yeah, like the band is original and he's an imitation of Oasis, basically. Like, when you hear his songs, like, all he knows
Is
how
what
to
he
do
sees.
is to imitate what he's seen. He doesn't have a special filter.
He
that
has no
makes him-
imagination.
He's not an artist. He's not a real artist.
But he does come up with beats that people liked somewhat. They're like, we can build off this. This is
Yeah.
decent layer. And that's why I think, but then when he got pushed out of it completely, then it was just like, oh.
Yeah.
I just felt so much for John. Like, I know, like, at the end when it started to fall apart, I felt that he was like, this is his only shot. That's why I was so sad when he walked away and I almost felt like at that end part of the movie, I didn't feel like he was going to go do his own thing. I felt that he was going off because he realized that he will never be good at this.
I think part of that is true.
And he was giving up on everything.
Well, there's no way to know, obviously, unless they have a Frank 2.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but that's what I felt when he was
Franker.
walking away.
Frank 2. This time it's more Franker.
Like, it didn't have to be it didn't have to be like a positive ending. They all get back together and play the show. But if they kind of just forgave John and he was kind of they just like, you fucked up, don't do it again, and then he finally just acceptance of his place, and he knows he'll still be fulfilled if he's just a keyboardist giving a little bit of beats every so often.
Mike, it's an indie movie. They need their plastic bag in the wind, right?
But I don't think he was giving up, period. I just think he recognized that avenue, that door was closed for him. That's why he didn't write any more tweets. He didn't do anything like that anymore. He didn't update any more videos, because he knew that avenue was closed.
I mean,
Not to-
sorry.
Go on, how do you start it?
No, the other thing is, if you realize that you just are now giving up your dreams, would you look happy about it?
He was happy that they got together, but
How do you know he wasn't just happy of like, this is like, it's like an accepting this is how it's got to be?
but that's so
cliche.
No, I find it so. Maybe it's because I'm pushing what I want.
Yeah.
Like, if I was in that position, it would be so sad that, like, you had a dream and now
His dream's not gone. He could still go off and do
it just
it.
wasn't the right dream.
I know,
It's
but
just
that's
not the right path.
I know, but what I gather from that ending scene, it's like that's what he wants, like a band of some kind to be part of, and him walking out is just, I'm not going to ever have that, so I'm done. I'm going back home to work to get my job back. That's how I see it. Like, I think
it's up to interpretation.
Yes, it is.
And
But
I think if everything just was like, he found a place in the band, I think it would be a weaker ending.
Yeah, that
We
is
wouldn't
true.
be
It's
talking
not-
about the ending. We'd be like, and then it was over, and it was too easy. Like, right now, we just have an open-ended ending, and I think that is stronger in this case.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you more to think about, and that's what this movie wants.
yeah, and it definitely succeeded with making me think, but I almost felt like I didn't think it should be common, like, all right, we forgive you. It's just like, no, or I don't know.
But I don't think they.
What I wanted
I
out
don't
of
think they did. I don't think they forgave him.
No, I don't
Yeah,
think they did either.
No.
They were rid of a parasite, and he was like, I don't have to be a parasite for this band anymore. It was the ending of a bad relationship. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not...
Think of it as a
But it
breakup.
was such a
Yeah.
good relationship up to a point.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
every
it wasn't.
relationship can be like that.
Yeah,
like, you can
like
have the best relationship in the world, something screws up, and it's over. That's
I
what happens.
thought my last
But-
boyfriend was a good relationship, and now I'm like, he was an asshole. Like, and like you realize that over time. You're just like, I've been naive, and
Well,
I just
I think I
True,
realized
but there
that,
are.
I think that with this movie is a good example of that. I mean, while we were watching it, we were like, yeah, they're getting along. Yeah, they're. But then at the end, when the movie was over, we were like, they didn't really get along. He didn't really fit in. Like, we didn't see those like little hints. Like we missed them because we were, along for the ride, enjoying the fact that it looked like on the surface that he was fitting in. But when shit got real, he didn't really fit in, and you could see that.
because we're John. We're like, yeah, we're succeeding, and then it's like, no, we're not.
Right. I mean, if he really fit in when everything collapsed, everybody would have been a lot more like, okay, let's rethink this. What can we do? But instead they were like,
Yeah, there's
you
points in the film where that
fucked up.
happens. Like where Clara tries to get John to help her get Frank out of there.
Right.
And
but
he's
not,
in denial because Frank is like, I'm okay. And we know he's not okay. And John ignores it because he's so desperate for that dream.
Right.
But
But,
that's...
no.
That part where he's like, come to our show, I swear nothing bad will happen to you. Like, that's just like, oh no.
But I mean more like they would have been like, all right, so this isn't working. What can we do better? Like, let's cancel this show and let's do like what you said.
But they're not all,
Let's-
they're not rational people, so...
Right.
Not even John. So John is like them, just in a different way.
But what I'm saying
He has
is,
a sickness, he has an obsession, just like the rest of them.
right. But what I'm saying is, if he really did fit in, they would have made more of an effort
Yeah.
But that's what
to back him up.
I don't think they wanted him back.
No.
No, but that's what I felt like. He became part of them, and that's why it was so weird when they just cut him out. Because you see, when they're done the music and they all fall asleep on the floor together, them being together, and that picture of them is him finally accepted, and then all of a sudden he's that outcast again the moment they go to Texas.
Yeah, I mean, it's a story of a bad relationship too. I mean, like, I'm just
But
realizing.
I don't
that.
know if it's a bad relationship, though. It might have been good. Like, even good relationships have to end from some external source. And when you look back on it, you're like, that was a good relationship. It's too bad she had to move away to another country, or I went off to join the war or something.
Well, you can
okay.
reverse it though too. I mean, just because it's a bad relationship doesn't mean that there weren't good moments.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, if you we have a good relationship, and we have good times. We do. we have a good time. We do like good things. We make something, aka like an album or a baby. Like you can put that together.
Whoa.
No, I'm saying like an album would be like the baby, and then I cheat on you, and
You
nothing's ever
bastard.
the same. And then we go off our separate ways. I mean, that's exactly what you can deduce that and sit there and just do
Yeah.
Or
side by side comparison between a relationship and
Like what everybody's saying, I completely see where you're coming from. I see it a little differently. You guys, what you're saying, I completely understand. 100%. I feel a little different, and there's nothing wrong with either point. I
No,
think.
there's nothing
Or
wrong
I'm
with
just
the point.
horribly wrong.
but you're wrong. Everything
I agree with everything you're saying, but you're wrong.
it's more like a relationship where it's a good relationship, but at the end of the day, they want a kid and you want a dog. Like,
Yeah,
that's not a place where you can compromise. One of you is not going to be happy together, so it has to end.
I see that, and I think where I'm differing with you three, and I'm the minority, so most likely I'm seeing this film in the wrong light, but I see John as a little more forgivable than you guys, and I think that's...
I
no,
think
he
is.
he
It's
is-
just not to the band.
Yeah.
Right.
Just because we see him as forgivable doesn't mean they see him as forgivable.
I
Right.
see him also fitting in with the band more.
You
John-
may see him
Yeah.
as they do, and they might see him different.
John has the luxury of being a lot more adaptable and a lot more normal than they are.
Yes.
So John has hope, and John can have a normal life or like do whatever he wants. That band has to be that band.
I know, but I would see John as like that anchor that keeps them from committing arson.
Maybe they want to commit arson though.
Yeah.
That's not...
It's unstoppable, of course, immovable object. Like, they're just going to collide and nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, like I just saw Frank as the one, not Frank, but John is the one that would keep them grounded a little bit from hurting from hurting themselves and others. Because you see, if Frank's there and there's no Don, there's no John, no one's keeping those four in check.
They're
No.
fine
So
if they
the-
don't have a keyboardist. Keyboardists, for some reason,
But-
want more.
Keyboardists
no,
are the
like
ones.
weird.
Keyboardists are the ones that are supplying the money, supplying the food, supplying the
True.
places to rent. So without that, they don't know how to function without that.
But it's also a different Frank.
True.
Everybody has made like gains as far as, you know, their personality and, you know, their, you know, just all over, you know, everybody's changed and everybody's grown, and Frank included. So they probably don't even need that fifth wheel anymore.
That's true. I think Clara isn't so dependent on having Frank in the band because they've been without Frank. The band is, they're okay without Frank. They're not their favorite band anymore, but like
But they look devastated when they're playing.
Yeah, but they're still like, they're able to function without him, and Frank comes back. Frank's able to function without a mask, and he's able to be Frank without a big head, and I don't know.
He kind of peeled away that little layer of uncertainty with him. I think he kind of grew up a little bit, like, and he kind of, you know, even the band, as much of a setback as it was for them to, you know, go through all of that, I think when at the end of the day they kind of grew out of like that whole thing. They don't need John anymore to keep them anchored. I don't think they needed John to begin with.
I think they're fine at El Madrid.
Yeah, I think that whole ending song sequence is them existing without.
I thought the song
outside
was supposed to be a representation of like, even with all your flaws, I accept. I love you still.
No, that was him saying that to the band. That whole thing was what all he was saying was about the room itself and the people, but he never names anything. Like, he names people specifically, but I think he was actually it was more of like a, you know, I'm here, I'm okay, you know, I love you all, you're my family kind of thing.
Except for you, John. You piss off.
John's not part of their world anymore. John brought them back. His redemption was bringing him back.
Yeah.
His redemption is not bringing them back and accepting like hey, can I come back? He was like, okay, he needs to be with these people, but I'm no good to these people. I need to move on.
I think he could be good. I think our interpretations of John are just a little bit different.
He could, I'm sure he could be good, but in his head, he doesn't want to be. He like in his head. That's why he moved on. If he wanted to stay, he could have just been like, "Hey, can I stay?" He would have been like, you know, he would have stayed there in the bar, and he probably would have been like, you know, guys, I'm sorry, all this. No, all he did was he dropped them off, went,
yeah,
I'm done now. My work here is done. I just did my last good deed for these people, and he left.
Yeah. Then a bell rings, he earns his wings and flies off.
There you go.
But I mean, you know, as far as how the story like would continue, we don't obviously know. I mean, for all we know is like he could come back to them down the line, maybe a couple months from now.
But
you
I
know,
don't
want to believe that.
Right, yeah. But I think the whole experience for John was kind of like culture shock. I mean,
yeah,
he definitely was very naive. He didn't know what to expect as far as, you know, what condition, like psychologically, these people were in. He didn't have any idea. He just sort of laughed it off with everybody else. And when he found out, like, that was huge for him. I don't think he could have gone back just then. You know, he almost needed time to himself to kind of like digest it and really realize like what he learned.
That's like when someone dates somebody and they're like, oh, they're quirky, I like them, and then they realize they're a real person with real problems and they can't deal with that. They like that fantasy a lot better than the reality. That's when a relationship doesn't work. And that's another thing. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking like that too. I mean, all that time, John was glorifying Frank and like looking up to him, and then like, what a kick in the face to know like this person you looked up to had these problems.
Well, it's obvious at the beginning he had problems.
Well, but
you don't know
John
to what extent though.
Didn't know.
But we didn't
right,
even
exactly.
know his problem. That he just, in the end, all we found out is like he wears a mask. We don't understand why. It's like, well, he got.
I'm sure it delved
like
somewhere into.
He just didn't like. Yeah, But there wasn't anything like, this is why. But he turned out to be kind of just quirky.
But
like,
John had all that same information too. I mean, John was seeing all this for the first time, probably pretty sheltered. I mean, seeing where he lived and seeing, like, what were those, his grandparents? I mean, I
think they're his
parents.
Yeah.
I mean, whoever it was, like, you know, I mean, didn't seem like he came from a really big place. You know, looked like he came from a much smaller place.
Oh, yeah.
Right, but what I'm saying is he probably wasn't exposed to stuff like that. He didn't know what to expect.
I'm sure he's a bit naive.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think he's also just, he is younger than everyone else.
Yeah.
So I think that's why he's younger, because if he was the same age as everybody else, you would just
He's
look like an
more
idiot.
or less disillusioned at the end. Not disillusioned that he can't do it, but disillusioned that it's going to be as easy as he thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What a way to end.
No, it's
Everything's a lie.
yeah. I
You
think
can't-
It's not a happy movie. It's
It's not a
not.
happy movie.
Mm-mm.
I think
no,
it's
I don't know
also-
why it's not like. That's the point. I feel like it's forced to. It's almost forcing it to be unhappy because the beginning you have this vibe and it's like dun 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 dun, dun and then a forced like 180 into being completely serious. It didn't feel like it was happening naturally, and you're slowly seeing these bits fall apart. It just felt like death, and then we're like nervous breakdown of everybody, like just these bits I just didn't see like that were just
Isn't that life though?
Yeah, it tells it like it is. I
It is not like it is.
No, I'm saying, like, isn't it
Yeah,
life
no,
though? I
it's
mean,
life.
if you think about it, you know, you could be having a great day, and all of a sudden,
Right.
your mom's dead.
There's no
and then
foreshadowing.
you're like, crap. Nobody told me that my mom was gonna die. Nobody
Right.
said my mom was gonna have an aneurysm and she was just gonna drop dead on the floor.
Right.
It happens. It's
Yeah.
life.
There's
And
no-
then you have to go from that plateau to the next one. You gotta
But
take that as it goes.
but this is not. It's
movie can be as much as real life as you want. I'm like, that's your art. If you want to make it as real as possible, do it.
true, but like,
Doesn't have to follow schematics, Mike.
well, film has to,
Doesn't
or
have
else.
to.
Not
It
India.
No.
Like it has to be a good film. It has to have a structure. If you just throw random images on the screen, you have a Eraserhead, and it's just like it's a good movie, but even that has structure. But like I just felt like like yes, but there was no build up. It wasn't like you had these glimpses. Like you had the guy was depressed, but then just to hang himself with no precursor to that, except when he was running away, and then
We
Maggie
don't
Gyllenhaal
know
threw
his-
a log at his head.
We also don't know his entire backstory. either.
But then you
I
could
mean-
say that about anybody. You could say
Yeah.
John tried to commit suicide at one point because he wasn't
Maybe
being.
he would have.
See, but that we have to work with what we're given.
Well, and
Well-
that's life. I mean, you work with what you're given. You don't know person's
No,
backstory.
a film is different because you are. It's
Not
their.
in this case.
It's their job to give you the needed information.
I think the whole purpose of this movie was to show life in its ugliness. I mean,
And I
It
think
wasn't ugly though.
I think Don's a good example of what happens not only when you try to well, I mean it is, it's all when you try to be things that you're not. Like not only does he want to be Frank real bad,
But he accepts
but
it.
he also he can't have sex with mannequins. That's all he likes to have sex with. He has to have
Why
sex with women.
not? He
that
could get a
will-
permit.
Because like he's been taught that that's wrong. So he has to now he has relationships with women, but he really needs them to lie still to get off. Like he's not getting to be himself. Like that is him.
Well, Don was my favorite character out of the whole thing.
I don't disagree.
'Cause I
with you.
felt
Don's
like-
that Don's a good character.
But it's like, it's wrong for him to have sex with mannequins. Is that why he's in love with Frank? Because he looks like a mannequin?
no, I think
But-
he wants to be. Everybody wants to be Frank because Frank's so like charismatic. Like look how he was with like the German family. Like and he just charmed the pants off of them. And he knew German and like they were like how. But that's just Frank. Like everybody wants to be Frank because like I mean when he's not going off his rocker. He's so nice and he's so magnetic. So of course you want to be Frank too, but you know, because they're all messed up. But if they're gonna be messed up, they want to be as cool as Frank.
Yeah, honestly, if I had the problems that they had, I'd want to be Frank in the good days.
Yeah, because Frank's so positive too.
Yeah.
Like he's just like, oh, like
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, I mean, he is their little ray of sunshine.
Where to go from here? Does anybody have anything else they want to bring up? Because we have plenty.
Yeah.
I just don't want to, like, we keep getting back to Frank and John. I kind of want to just.
Well,
I think we've said all we can say.
They're the main focus. I mean, if you're going to sit there and go, well, let's talk about the bass player.
We haven't really
what are
talked
we gonna talk
much about Maggie Gyllenhaal. Like the bass player and the drummer, I think are
There
almost.
Isn't much
They're
to say
just.
about her either,
You could
though.
replace them with a monkey, and you wouldn't get much different.
Yeah.
Maggie Gyllenhaal again isn't like a core to a lot of the story. Like she's there as like a kind of like I don't know, happenstance or something. Like she just is there to like fill a void for some reason.
You need an antagonist, and she's it.
Yeah, I think she's there to fill a spot, and what she does as a part makes sense in the story. It's not like she's just like, why did she stab him? Like
Right.
everything she does makes sense.
Yeah. Somebody
Except for
has,
stabbing a potato to just show us she has a knife,
well,
and that's it. That's
But-
all we got.
That
from
knife
this season.
came back.
Yeah, I know.
Now we know
But
she
I was
has
like,
it, and she's going to use it.
How'd she get through customs with that thing?
but somebody has to be the one in the group to remember like the way Frank can get. You know, somebody has to be the one to like point out. I mean, I know like people don't want to remember their mental illnesses or, you know, things like that, but you know, somebody has to be the one to like ground you and say, all right, well, listen, like this is how you get in this situation. Let's just be prepared.
But that's what
for
a
that
normal
situation.
person would do. But we
But
already
that's her-
established that she's a little nuts.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe a
but,
little
I
nuts,
mean-
but that's her purpose in this band.
I'm a little nuts, but I can still take care of people. Like, just because someone has a mental illness doesn't mean that they're just invalid as a human being and as somebody who's responsible. She's not always responsible.
Yeah.
But in that particular facet of her life, she is. Like, she knows her people that are in this core group, and she knows what sets them off.
Right. And I think that's what makes her the antagonist is like in real life, like we like to all forget, you know, our problems and, you know, we like to be the one to just, you know, go off and have a good time like Frank and be, you know, be happy and be positive. But, you know, Clara is the one that says, well, life's not always like that.
Mm.
You have to remember who you are. You have to remember all your bad things too.
I disagree. Because I think she's actually shielding Frank from his bad things so he doesn't realize he has them.
Well, I think that when
Nobody's
Frank...
perfect.
Yeah.
I think she has good intentions, though. That's the thing. Like, I don't think she's deliberately doing it
Yeah.
No,
to be like a jerk. I think she's doing it because she thinks that's the right way to go, and it's been working so far.
Not
Right,
to mention, none of them are trained in like any kind of immersion therapy or anything. Like so just sticking him in like places where like he's gonna go off the deep end, like you gotta do that like, you know, little by little. So like, you know, when it's too much for him, like you gotta be like a plow. Like, you know, you can't just like you gotta know when Houdini's gonna drown. Like it's
Too soon?
hasn't been 100 years, but it's been a long time.
South Park says 9.
Yeah.
The acting is so good in this movie. We've seen a lot of movies where the acting is crap, but everybody in this movie was a good actor, and I can appreciate that.
Yeah,
As an actor.
I liked
agree
them
there.
all.
And especially like
loved them all.
Michael Fassbender, to convey so much emotion without using his face is such a good thing. Like it's just
Yeah, I easily forgot that he was wearing that head.
it's just that performance is such a good performance. Like it's funny, that's how I am with Silence of the Lambs. Like, I like the story and all, but at the end of the day, the reason why I keep coming back to it is I'm watching these performances and going like, God damn, that's great. And the more I watch it, the more Buffalo Bill is my favorite because there are so many subtleties and nuances that I'm like, oh my god, like I'd never even think of that as an actor.
And then it turns out it was life imitating art. Which is, woo. That's all because of that time with Monk, wasn't it?
But like it's exactly that. Like this whole film was it was acted so well, even though like maybe we're not supposed to like this character, but they made us not like that character. Like it's.
I think it's acted so well that like I don't question the movie's motives so much because like I just think of it like life because they're.
It was almost like we were watching a documentary about this band, watching the rise and fall of this band.
Yeah.
Well, that went south fast, but I guess it really was meant to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see it, and as I watched it, I guess that's why I might have interpreted so much different, because the acting was so well, and I grew engrossed with them so easily, and I guess I saw maybe a second viewing. I'd probably see something different with this film, and I might come around more to what you guys got out of it.
Or not.
But, like, I know. I probably was seeing what I wanted to see.
Yeah.
That's usually how the first viewing of movies go. Some people say you need to see a movie twice. Because the first time, you watch it with the expectations of what you want, and the second time is you watch the movie for what it is. And the second viewing is kind of more of a grounded way of watching something.
Except with Rosemary's Baby, which sucked both times.
That'd be an interesting social experiment, though. Not social experiment, but be an interesting experiment to watch a movie and do podcasts on it, but then watch it again and do another podcast on it.
The second one I feel would be very short.
Well,
Well, everything we said was the exact same, except I feel about it this way. Thank you. Good night.
If you could change anything in this, just to make it better for you, completely opinion, what would this be? Jennifer?
I think you wanted to start.
No, I was actually going to point to Mike. Just because you're not expecting it, Mike.
Ah, damn it. Yeah, something along with that ending. I know it's open ending, but I would have liked to see just a tiny bit of what John does, whether he goes back to his job or whether he continues trying to. But it's still nice to see him just walk off, but I don't know what that symbolized. It was a little foggy for me. Like whether he's accepting that he'll never get anywhere with musicians, or does he go back to do his own job? Just something like that. That's just for me. I realize that the film works as it is, but...
Really?
Uh-oh.
Oh, okay. I like the film. I like the way it's done. I don't think I'd change any core thing with the film. What I would like to do is what I would like to see is maybe a little bit more of, like, the music from the CD. Like, some of the songs that they might have done, rather than just, like, those little pieces that they did and work on it. I'd like to have them, like, have it progressive, like, this is a part of the song, then they go off and do their thing, then this is not, and then at the end, a full finished track, and then they cut it, and then it's a CD. Kind of like a montage, a bit of, like, how they did the songs, rather than just, like, do our stuff, oh, CD's done. Like, I'd like to see them, like, show it progress more as a musician, to hear what they do and how they're recording it and stuff like that, and so maybe, like, have, like, a full thing at the end. Although I did like when they were recording how they recorded him jumping.
Yeah.
That was
that
actually
weird
funny.
quirkiness. Like, quirkiness to 11.
Yes.
Alright. Which Y chromosome would like... No.
X chromosome.
Yes, we're the wise.
You're the
Damn.
wise.
It's
cut
just
that
got
part.
awkward.
Just cut that part.
Never.
We don't do editing.
What? It's perfect first time. Maybe you need a second take.
Oh.
So it's like 7 takes at the beginning.
Middle
Jenny,
finger raise.
I'm gonna pick you.
I said, I think originally my answer was going to be that I wished that there was like more like tweets at the end, like to kind of like wrap everything up, like when he found Frank. But I don't know. Now that we've been sitting here talking about it and like reflecting on it, and I think the movie was good the way it was. Because it was, instead of what you said, life imitating art, it was, art imitating life, and it was that's the way it is. And I totally get why he didn't make any tweets, because he was like done with that part of his life. And I get that now. So I don't think they should change anything.
Angie?
I don't have anything that I'd actually change about the film. What I want to see more of is a little bit more backstory of the characters, but I actually would have wanted to see more Don, because he was of the group. I don't know. He was just. I think it was that song. Like there was just like.
Yeah, that was.
There was just. It's such a weird little poignant number, and I'm just like, I want to hear more about this dude and his mannequins. As weird as that is, it's just, who is this guy? He leaves so soon.
Yeah, he's not hurting anybody.
No.
People do the blow-up dolls all the time.
Yeah.
Let the man have his mannequin. I think they sell mannequins specifically for what he wants.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah, it's just that ending scene with how sad that was. I was like, ugh. But then he was just cut, and I was like, my favorite character gone. All right, in a week, how to watch it again? Would you pull out your cell phone? I would not, honestly. I would fully pay attention to this film, because I think there's definitely more than enough for me to look out and try to interpret the film again and to see, and there's enough parts that I really like that I would be happy to watch it again, honestly.
I guess same for me. I mean, I don't know that I would watch it in a week. Maybe that's a little too soon. I don't really have any urges to watch it like tomorrow or anything.
I kind of do, especially after the talk now. I want to see if a second viewing will let me see what everybody else saw.
Maybe you are the Frank.
But yeah, I think if we did watch it again, like maybe a couple of weeks down the line, I don't think I would have my phone out.
I mean, I just had to watch it today at work, which was hard to do. But I'd like to see it again, because I was catching things that I didn't quite catch the first time. I mean, they're mostly silly little background things. There's just this scene where they're running around outside, and Frank is just chasing John with I think it's a shovel, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It's just just trust me. It's just there's so many little quirky moments that are really funny. I laughed out loud at that.
Mr. Richard.
I would have my phone out, but I'd be watching it on my phone.
Clever girl.
I think we can end on that.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, it's always good. It's always good. Well, thank you for joining us on Somebody Told Me to Watch This. You can find us on Facebook at /STMtWT. Follow us on Twitter at STMtWT Podcast, or shoot us an email with a request on any movie you'd like to see at STMtWT@gmail.com. Thank you, and have a frank day.
What the hell are you talking about? Who are you talking to?